Please rewind this cassette.
Alright, I'm going to cut to the chase. You may have heard of a movie called Twisters that just came out starring Glenn Powell, the most handsome man ever. Well, that happens to be a sequel to a little film known as Twister. Recently, because of the release of Twisters, I've noticed on social media everybody's talking about the original film from '96, directed by Jean de Bont, who, if you don't know, also directed Speed and was the cinematographer on Die Hard. Now, I don't want to age myself here, but I saw Twister in the theater when it came out. That's right, I'm that old. I wasn't like 20 or something, but I remember it very well. It was a big deal. I remember the trailers on TV. I remember there being a poster for the movie at my school. I lived in the South, so tornadoes weren't a foreign concept to me. I've actually seen a few in my life. Now, the reason I made this video was kind of stupid, but I had to get it out. That original time seeing it back in '96 had a huge impact on me, and I've thought about it for years. And the way that people discuss Twister, I don't think quite gets it right. What do I mean by this? Well, Twister's often called a disaster film. In fact, it's credited with popularizing the genre again, leading to films like Titanic becoming a billion-dollar movie. But I don't think Twister's a disaster film. I get it, there's disaster film-esque things about it. The tornadoes come and destroy stuff, and the characters go from set piece to set piece. I get it in basic terms. But in my mind, and especially after a recent rewatch, Twister isn't a disaster movie. It's a horror movie with supernatural elements. So if you haven't seen the film, the gist of it is a group of tornado chasers, led by Helen Hunt, are going around and trying to use a device called Dorothy. Dorothy, when put in the middle of a tornado, will shoot out these little balls that'll collect data that give them better time to know when a tornado's coming. Bill Paxton, who used to be married to Helen Hunt's character, needs her to sign divorce papers. He shows up on the day and then gets caught up in this adventure because he also was invested and designed Dorothy. So from then on, we just get them chasing down tornadoes, trying to get the device to work, them failing. Then there's enemy tornado chasers led by Carrie Elwes. Bill Paxton says at one point that they're in it for the money, not the science. I'm not exactly sure that that means because I don't know how much money there is in this business. I mean, I don't know the economics of it, so I can be corrected. Obviously, in the comments, tell me this, but you know, if you're trying to make money, I don't know if this is the best business to go into. Like, how do I become a millionaire? I'm gonna chase tornadoes. That's really smart. Now, this movie's famous for a few things. There's some actors in this that went on to be bigger. Philip Seymour Hoffman was in this movie, and before this, I think he was really only known for Son of a Woman, and I remember him standing out at the time in the theater. Alan Ruck, Cameron from Ferris Bueller's in this movie. He was also in Speed. The weirdest one's Todd Field, the director of Little Children. What the hell is he doing in this? He's also the piano player in Eyes Wide Shut. He's a pretty good actor, but it's just strange, because, I don't know, whenever I see Todd Field, I just think, pervert, pervert, and he oozes that in this film as well. Little weird trivia here before we get into the main point of the video. Mark Cuban actually auditioned for the Philip Seymour Hoffman role and got a few callbacks. Could you imagine if Mark Cuban was in this movie? So, let me explain why Twister's a horror film, and then tell me if I'm crazy. The opening of this film, if you haven't seen it, spoilers, it came out a long time ago, so kiss my ass. The beginning scene is a G5 tornado attacking the house of Helen Hunt's character as a little girl. Her father dies when they're down in a bunker because he's holding a door with a little lock on it. I don't know, her father was clearly a very stupid man, but it's an exciting scene. Very impactful, especially the first time you see the movie. And it sets the stage. These tornadoes mean business. They are here to kill people. Jump to the modern day. Here we are, Bill Paxton, divorce papers, blah, 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 brings his new wife. They go tornado chasing. Now, for a while, The horror elements aren't really there. It is just kind of a ripoff of Jurassic Park or Jaws. But slowly and steadily, the character of Joe, played by Helen Hunt, is clearly trying to commit suicide. And this is early on, too. Like, she says, I want to see it. I want to look at the tornado. She's still traumatized by the death of her father. Now, beyond that, though, very early in this movie, they also established that Bill Paxton's character, who I believe is named Bill, has some sort of supernatural power to know when the tornadoes are going to show up and what direction they're going to go in. They do this. I'm not adding my own thing to the movie. It's established. He like picks up some dirt, looks around, and they're like, oh, Bill always knows what's going to happen. He's got like a sixth sense. This is a plot for an X-Files episode. He's got the Shining ability like Danny, and we're going to bring the Shining up because I don't think it's a coincidence that it shows up in this movie. So Bill, with his superpowers to understand the tornadoes, is leading them to where they need to go to try to activate Dorothy. During these sequences, the character of Joe keeps putting herself in very dangerous and reckless situations that the character of Bill has to pull her back from, almost like a guardian angel. So I believe that she would have definitely 100% died and been killed by a tornado had he not been there and used his superpowers. So for a while, it's not too crazy, it's not too supernatural. I guess you could say the tornadoes feel like an act of God, although there seems to be a lot of them in a short amount of time, but it is Oklahoma, so let's be fair. I mean, you go get McDonald's in the morning and you see a tornado. They go to her aunt's house to eat food in a scene that's absolutely delicious and very much burned into my mind. And they're having a conversation and talking about the different levels of tornadoes. Bill Paxton's new wife asks, who's ever seen a G5? And they say only one. We get a jump cut to Helen Hunt. This is very important. This is very much a horror movie cut. It's very much in the tone of a horror movie. It reminds me of The Conjuring. It reminds me of a haunted house film. There's some slasher elements, and particularly the tornadoes feel like slasher villains. But even then, it's still kind of just a generic movie. It makes sense to give some motivation to one of the characters and why they're doing this to begin with. So, nothing too crazy. But let's jump ahead even further. The most famous scene in Twister, and most of you probably know this even if you haven't seen the movie, is a drive-in movie theater sequence. When they're watching The Shining, they're getting burgers, everybody's hanging out, there's a motel right next to the drive-in in this town that looks like it has like 500 people. And while they're all there waiting, a tornado attacks them exactly in that spot. I think it's coming for Joe. I think this is some Final Destination thing where the tornadoes didn't get to kill Joe in the beginning of the movie. They took her father, but they wanted her, and they've been hunting her down ever since. Why would the tornado show up exactly at this time when they are there at the drive-in? You can tell me that it's contrived writing. I don't believe that because of the following scene. They survive the drive-in sequence, which is an awesome scene. The coolest shot in the movie is the tornado coming through the screen, and you see Jack Nicholson's face. 10 out of 10. Great job, John DeBont. But after surviving this, even though one of the members of the team gets injured, what happens? We cut to the aunt's house again, and a fucking tornado shows up. So it couldn't get Joe at the drive-in movie theater, and then coincidentally, oh, I don't know, it just happens. It shows up to her closest relative, the person she cares about the most? That doesn't seem a little odd to you? Almost like these are omnipotent beings? These tornadoes are aware of what they're doing? Okay, so they go check the aunt. The dog's okay, thank God. It's one of the only movies where they don't kill the dog. Kudos to that, and Independence Day with Boomer. But then, here's the thing. The G5 shows up again. Philip Seymour Hoffman comes and talks to her, and he's like, it's a G5. So the G5 returns. This is like the boss battle. It's the villain from your past. The G5 knows that it can't get the job done when it's underling tornadoes that it's been sending out to kill her. Because she has Bill with her. They weren't expecting him. He wasn't supposed to be here today, but God loves this woman and doesn't want her to die. So they go face the G5. They release Dorothy. They hook a belt up to a pipe, and that somehow keeps them safe from a tornado or getting hit by anything. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. But Anyway, happy ending, blah, blah, blah. But when you really look at the movie, what is this film? Joe's a final girl. The tornado are supernatural, slasher villains, monsters, what have you. The character of Bill has special powers, special abilities, like from a Stephen King-like novel, and he uses them to protect her and guide her and save her from this. It's wild. It's a frickin' horror movie. These aren't just random tornadoes. These aren't acts of God. These things have motivation. That's part of why the movie works. And here's how I'll make my point even more. I'm going to go back to 1996. You know how Twister made me feel in the theater when I saw it? Scared. It scared the crap out of me. I saw Titanic in the theater. You know what I wasn't scared of when I went home afterwards? Icebergs. I didn't get scared of icebergs. I just thought about Leo dying in the ice and how cool everything was, but I wasn't scared. It's not a horror movie. It is a disaster film. It's a tragedy. That's how a lot of these movies work. You don't just go home and stay up in the middle of the night like, oh no, that iceberg's going to get me. But tornadoes? Holy shit, man, this was like Jaws. I'm scared of them now. One could be out the window right now. When you go to bed tonight, make sure you lock the doors, check your weathercast, just make sure everything's okay. A tornado might sneak up on you. Having said all this, I don't really know if it's a very good movie. It's got a pretty lackluster script. The villain is not fleshed out at all, and he dies, which we can factor that into the horror element if we want to. The romance is hokey. Some of the side characters aren't fleshed out. Actors really elevate a lot of the characters in this movie. This is a very well acted film. It's a very well shot film. It's a very well made movie. Well edited. Michael Kahn, Spielberg's longtime editor, edited the film. So there's a lot of talent involved with Twister, and it does have lasting power. And the special effects by ILM are groundbreaking and still shockingly hold up despite being as old as they are. I really thought this movie would look more dated. But it did take me back to the fear this movie gave me. And I thought maybe I was crazy because the way everybody talks about this film, they just talk about it like an action movie. Like, oh, isn't it cool when they drive through the house? Isn't the cow cool? But really, it's psychologically wrought. What Joe's going through. This woman is going to die. She's not only not avoiding death, she's directly going into the face of it and wanting it to happen. There's a whole scene where he's like, you got me, Joe. Don't die, blah, blah, blah. But it's true. He's trying to tell her, like, what the hell is wrong with you? So we have a supernatural character that can follow tornadoes and understand them and feel them. They're connected to them, like he's a guy who can talk to ghosts. It's really not that far off. He's like the Warrens from the Conjuring movies or something. Or once again, Danny from The Shining. The tornadoes are like the Overlook Hotel. They trap people. They attack Jo when she's young, and then they get her to come back because they didn't get the job done. They keep drawing her back in until the G5 has to return. So adding all these elements together, I can safely say I think Twister is much more of a horror film than an action film or a disaster film. Despite its comedic elements, despite its ensemble cast, despite maybe the pacing being like that more of an action film, this is a film about evil tornadoes that know they're evil tornadoes and they're trying to kill you, especially Helen Hunt. I don't know if they hated Mad About You and they were Seinfeld guys or something, and that's part of it. I'm not sure. But still, these tornadoes know what they're doing. That to me makes it more of a horror film. They are self-aware. You could say Godzilla and King Kong are in disaster films and they're self-aware. That's fine. That's okay. I don't always know if they want to hurt people. I think they're just doing it because they have to. It's like, hey, Godzilla's pissed off, he's ripping through the city. And a lot of time Godzilla saves the city by fighting another monster that's worse than he is. That's not the case with Twister. These tornadoes only have one goal in mind: utter chaos and absolute mayhem. So next time you watch it, just pay attention to these little plot threads, in particular that middle stretch where the tornado is targeting wherever the Joe character is or anyone that she cares about. Anyway, go see Twister starring Glenn Powell, the most handsome man in the world. And just be careful next time you're out there. A tornado might get you. Also, Twister is a horror title. Like, come on.